Hey dudes, all I can say is wow, this lens is incredible, and it's taken me 3 years to get my hands on this monster of a lens. So was it worth the wait? Well, let's get into it. If you haven't used any RF lenses, look, you really don't know what you're missing out on. Now, this RF 28-70 L lens is fairly revolutionary because of its fast f2 aperture, which means you can maintain fast shutter speeds and still shoot in low light situations. Plus you get really nice bokeh in your backgrounds. This is a dream lens for wedding, portrait and event photographers and cinematographers alike. Its field of view is wide enough at 28mm for a vast majority of photographers, and 70mm is a great short telephoto zoom. But to buy this lens, you're going to have deep pockets, as its price tag costs as much as it weighs, at $3,000 plus US dollars and 1.5 kilos respectively. But you are getting a lot of lens for the money. What you don't get for the money is parfocal, optically stabilized, or an internal zoom lens. I will discuss this a little bit more in depth later in the video. The front element is 95mm. That's large, and it's not a common size. So you may need to get some step up or step down rings to use smaller or larger filters with this lens. Smaller filters with step down rings will vignette at 28mm, and 95 and up screw-on filters are a lot more expensive to buy. While the included EW103 lens hood is good, it's plastic and it does feel cheaply made. Like most new RF lenses, the housing is made of plastic and it doesn't feel like a premium quality product for the money. Which might be good for keeping the weight down, but it's not fantastic for long-term durability. The lens is weather sealed with a metal mount and does come with a leather suede carry bag to protect the lens in transit. My favourite thing about the RF system is the control ring on the front of the lens. Like all RF control rings, the 28-70 ring can be set to any number of functions. So if you're an old school DP like me, we can have iris control right on the lens. Now, if you are shooting video, you may want to get the lens declicked by Canon to minimize the noise when filming. Next are the zoom and focus controls, and like my RF 15-35, the 28-70 sports the same familiar, consistent tactile feel, and this lens has the same great rubberized ring grips. The manual focus ring feels very smooth in rotation, it's not too loose and doesn't have a big focus throw. The focus ring is electronically coupled to the focus motor and it does respond very quickly. And if you're not happy, the focus ring's responsiveness and direction is alterable via the camera menu system. Autofocus in video mode works very well too, but more on the video autofocusing in a minute. When in stills mode, the autofocus is super responsive, it's super sticky and almost completely silent. The zoom ring has a consistent feel throughout the zoom range, and for me, it's got about the perfect amount of resistance and dampening. It's just not too loose, which is impressive considering the amount of glass the mechanism has to move and then hold in place. What I'm not a fan of is the tromboning style of the zoom, but this is because I'm a cinematographer more than a photographer. This design of zoom lens pushes a lot of air through the lens and onto the sensor. They create more noise when zooming in and out. The design also makes the use of traditional matte boxes hard, especially when you're using the lens on a rig camera with rails and lens supports. The cheapest option to combat this is to use lightweight clamp-on style matte boxes for video work. But this style of matte box isn't always ideal for speed on set, and they also limit your filtration options. But I'll let you be the judge of whether these things matter or not. For many, none of this will matter. Why? Because the image quality the lens produces in combination with, say, an R or a C line of camera is breathtaking. But let's have a look at some of the test charts to better see what's going on with the lens. Let's start with the sharpness. This test was shot on my R5 in JPEGs at 45 megapixel, and as you can see, the lens is super sharp. It renders sharpness from the center to all edges of the frame, even at 28mm f.2. At 70mm, the lens is still razor sharp, but it has ever so slightly lost some contrast, which is impressive for any lens. Now, if you stop the lens down to f4, the lens performs even better, providing more edge-to-edge sharpness and contrast at 70mm. And this trend continues across the entire zoom range until after f11, where diffraction starts to affect the lens's sharpness. and we see a slight softening of the overall image quality. What this proves is that the 28-70 RF lens performs best between f4 and f11. This trend goes for vignetting and distortion as well. At 28mm under f4, the lens has a moderate barrel distortion, but less than most zoom lenses. Here we also see strong vignetting on the corners at f2. But from f4 on, the vignetting disappears and the lens renders even illumination across the frame, all the way out to 70mm. But there was one test that took me by surprise as a video shooter, and that's how bad this lens breathes when focus pulling. For photographers, this may not be an issue, but for cinematography work, this amount of lens breathing is undesirable, and I find it very disappointing for a lens exceeding $3,000 US. To test the lens's autofocus responsiveness, accuracy, and lens breathing, I set a repeatable test on my Axio slider. I tested different focal lengths, used the same 3-foot camera move, the same push-in duration, and the same speed, all recorded at 100 frames per second at various f-stops. I switched off the IBIS, and in a further attempt to throw off the AF system, I even set a repeatable oscillation into the slider move, so the shots are meant to look shaky. But the Canon 28-70 performed like a champ. The R5 in combination with the 28-70 nailed all of the camera moves except the underexposure tests, where the lens and camera combo would sometimes struggle to get focus at all. Even if the eye on the subject was recognised, in some instances the lens focus system would freeze. Even tapping on the screen and shifting the focus away and then moving it back to the subject, it just wouldn't fix the issue. To be fair, the R5 AF settings were set to factory standard so I could gain a baseline for future improvements. And in reality, the slider was moving very fast at around 1 foot per second, once the motion ramping was deducted from the slider move. So the 28-70 AF responsiveness results are pretty impressive. It's by far the best autofocus lens I've ever used or tested. Now I did some further tests, and if I encountered any problems with the AF system not locking onto a subject's eyes, I would either stop the lens down to f4 or make sure that the image wasn't underexposed. Now, this seemed to fix 100% of the AF issues that I was having when testing the 28-70 lens, and seemed to be the overall theme of this lens. f4 to f11 is the sweet spot. But there's also another aspect of this lens that let me down, and it's the iris response time. Now, I haven't heard anyone else reporting on this before. My 28-70 iris lags way behind the camera's instruction set. Look at how slow the iris responds to the camera's command. There is a massive delay no matter whether you use the control ring, touchscreen, or back camera dials. The iris response is slow. On one hand, this could be used as a creative tool by cinematographers as the iris movement itself is smooth. It appears almost stepless. But for photographers, this could be the difference between getting a shot or not getting it. Next, I tested chroma smearing and longitudinal chromatic aberrations. At the widest angle, 28mm at f2, you can see on the extremes of your image that the brightest light from behind my head is glaring a bit, with very little chroma smearing. But by 2.8, it's gone. This is the same for longitudinal chromatic aberration. At f2, the lens produces a small green highlight beyond the plane of focus and a slight pinking in the foreground. But once the lens is stopped down to f2.8, the longitudinal aberrations are gone. Related to longitudinal chromatic aberrations is bokeh. At either the wide or telephoto lens angles, the 28-70 renders pleasant out-of-focus backgrounds. The focus fall-off is beautiful and smooth. I'm super impressed at how creamy the bokeh on this lens is rendered. But this creaminess comes at a cost, and that cost is battery drain. Over the course of testing this lens, I found I got significantly less shots in stills mode and even less runtime in video mode per battery on my R5. The only thing that I can put this thing down to is the AF motors. They just kill your batteries having to push around such heavy glass elements inside the lens. Finally, the build quality is something to be desired. Why? Because Canon persists in building expensive lenses out of plastic polymers and not metal housings. For me, this does cheapen the overall buying experience and does cause me to pause when I start thinking about this lens's overall durability. Now, I'm not talking about the lens's fantastic weather sealing here. My concerns come from the carryover design philosophy from the EF to RF lens systems in combination with plastic components. Because I do wonder, will this plastic lens with its tromboning zoom design suffer the same fate as my 24-105? This is a long-standing design flaw that Canon is fully aware of. And this is why Canon have added a zoom lock on the side of the lens barrel here. But that's got to make you wonder why Canon went with a tromboning design, knowing their EF design lenses have this design flaw. With all of its flaws, the Canon 28-70 F2 L USM zoom lens is the best mirrorless lens I have ever used. It's optically superior, and that alone makes it worth the money. And with that, guys, I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.